welcome to Debugging in Drupal 8. This is one of the last sessions of the DrupalCamp. There's only one after that. I hope you enjoyed this DrupalCamp, and this session is going to be presented by Juampy. I'm pretty sure that you all know Juampy, but he is a senior developer at Lullabot, and he's been working a lot with Drupal 8 lately, and apparently having a lot of bugs to debug. And yeah, give a big applause.
Hello everybody. I'm going to start with a quick introduction, although Mateo already gave it. My real name is Juan Pablo, but nobody calls me Juan Pablo. My mom sometimes when she's upset. Everybody calls me Juampy. That's also my nickname, and I work for Lullabot. Lullabot is a design, strategy, and development company. It's distributed, so it doesn't mean that everybody works from home, but you just don't have to go to an office. I go to a co-working space in the mornings, for example, but we are scattered everywhere. Here's a summary of what we're going to see. The reason why I proposed this session is because when I started helping on Drupal 8 with patches, I realized that I couldn't do print anymore or DPM because I was taking too long to understand what was going on with the code, and also PHP was crashing sometimes because if you print an object and that object contains a reference to another object, which contains a reference to another object, the memory goes crazy and your laptop dies. So this is why I realized that I had to get better at debugging. And it's good because I use Vim for my day-to-day work, and my debugger I wasn't fluent enough debugging. I realized this just by reading patches at Drupal.org and debugging. So my feeling about this is so strong that if you don't get fluent with debugging code, I don't think you will last long with Drupal 8, because it's not just for fixing bugs, it's also for understanding logic. It's also to be able to get to a particular line of code and play with the variables that you have available, play with the objects, discover what sort of APIs you have available for that particular object with certain data. And you can only do that with a debugger. So what we're going to see is we're going to go together through a few typical scenarios that I find, and I have recorded a few clips that we're going to view together, and I'm basically going to share how I debug. So let's start. This is I don't know if Jose Carlos is here. I think he was going to another session. This is from last week. I keep on seeing this like every week. I think somebody who's stuck with something, and he's like, I tried this and the other, and it doesn't work. So that person comes to IRC, and we try to keep some hints, and the conversation goes on for the whole day. Like that person comes back and then asks more questions. So and there's a point where somebody says like, maybe you need to debug, and the thing is that every time you need to debug, you are in a rush because you need to fix something, and setting up the debugger and understanding how it works, it takes a while. So you're like, no, I shouldn't do this because I think I'm so close to fix this. And then the whole day passes and you still haven't figured out what's going on. You have no idea. It's like the code is like a black box for you. And this is why I just made a joke. So there's this game, you remember this guy from Jugar? Well, so I'm telling this to Jose Carlos, like, hey, you need to debug, because otherwise you never figure out what's happening. Hopefully Jose Carlos has already figured out about this. I'll ask him later. Why is this happening? It could happen in Drupal 7, but in Drupal 7 I think that you could still move on with just using devel functions, printing stuff, printing to a log, printing on a screen. In Drupal 8 it's even harder. This image, it doesn't really need to be on high quality. This is what I wanted to show. This is a call stack of a Drupal 7 request. There are many. This is function. Most of them are homomorphs, but mostly is the code is jumping from function to function, and therefore sometimes from file to file. you can get to a particular function and just see, like do some prints and figure out what's going on. While in Drupal 8, because of its more object-oriented approach, now we have one object that calls a method, that method maybe calls a service, that service calls another method, that service has a trait, so there are many more jumps. Each service, it has little functionality, so it's very hard for you to print something and see something that's actually giving you some useful output. And that's why we need to be able to traverse this whole request, see what's going on, see why it's going through here and not through here, see what sort of data we have here in order to make decisions in our code. This is a screenshot of the debugger I use. Debuggers are pretty much the same. Like the browser debugger is pretty much the same. It has pretty much the same functionality that you would find in PHP Storm or in vdebug, which is the plugin I use for Vim. Normally, you will have a screen where you can see the code. This highlighted line, it's the one where I did set a breakpoint, which is a point in the code where the execution will stop. That's the code that I want to analyze. And then on the right side, we can see the available variables on that particular context, local variables, global variables, and constants. And then here on this side, we have the backtrace or call stack. These are the set of functions that have been called until we got to this line. So if we continue this to the bottom, we'll get to index.php. And this is great because this is traversable. I can go here and click, and I can see which function or method call this one, and I can move on to see how did the code get to this point. And then finally, this section is something vdebug specific. It's just a status window saying we are listening, and these are the commands that you can use to move on throughout the code. So the first is the typical and easiest out of the two. I'm gonna share with you bugs that we may find are the visible ones, the PHP crash, the error with the rent window that you are like, there's something wrong. So it's visible. Hopefully, what is that line I wanted to show? We'll see it later. Hopefully you get an error message and a line number. So at least you have somewhere to start from. There was something was in the code that went wrong that led to that error, PHP error. It can be a notice as well. You still get a line with a notice. When you install Xdebug, you not only get the error line, you also get all the whole backtrace in the browser, and that is very useful because that's giving already you some context. Maybe you don't need to debug. Maybe it's enough for you to figure out what's going on by just going to that line because it's evident what's wrong. When it's not that evident is when you need to debug. This is a sample issue. This is a screenshot from an issue that we're gonna see now. A few months ago, I was helping on porting the workbench moderation module, and you couldn't delete a node that was moderated. So if a node was in needs review, you would click on delete and bam, PHP would crash. So this is a clip where I am going to replicate the issue. This is one of the most important things for debugging. If you are able to reproduce a bug with the minimum amount of steps possible, that's better because you can iterate through that until you fix it, or you can move that logic onto a test that tests it for you, so you can debug until the test passes. So in this video, I am enabling moderation for articles. I am creating an article, and then I'm hitting delete to see if I can see the error. So workbench moderation has been enabled. I am now enabling moderation for articles, setting up the statuses for the articles. And now I'm about to create an article. I don't really care about the data that I'll put in it. See, I have the steps there. And I'll just create an article in draft mode, so then I can click on delete and see if I'm getting an error. Workbench moderation converts this submit button into a muton. It's like a button with like a menu button. So that's a draft. I'm just gonna publish it, and see, we have this tab here to delete it. So let's see if we get an error there. There you are. This is formatted by xdebug. If you don't get xdebug, you just get this line. It's very tricky to figure out what's going on if you just get this line. This is very useful. So see, we have an error message and we have a line. That's where I'm going to start debugging. I'm going to set a breakpoint there, and I'm going to repeat the steps. So I can get there with the debugger. I can see what sort of variables I have available there. And we have the whole backtrace here. So I'm copying this line, going to Vim in my case, opening the file, going to the particular line, and setting a breakpoint there. So this is a widget I used to, so you can see what I'm typing. That's the line that is failing. See, 174. With F10, I set a breakpoint there. With F5, that's how I start listening for connections. In this case, I think that if I reload the page, I'm gonna hit the error. It didn't. The reason is that the article is already gone. So this particular piece of logic didn't happen again. We didn't go again through the same logic. So I need to again create the article, set it to needs review, publish it, and then delete it. This is why I was saying, like, if you can get this process to replicate the error as short as possible, it saves you a lot of time, especially if you need to debug this a few times. It may seem like just a few seconds, but if you spend like 3-4 hours with this, and you need to repeat like the same sort of steps, then it's a waste of time in the long term. There may be also false positives, like you get to the same line of code and maybe the variables don't have the values that cause the error. It's happening here, like I'm getting to that line, but it's passing because what that particular line of code is doing is just getting the latest revision. In Workbench moderation, works by having a current revision that is published and a forward revision, which is the one, like the latest one that has to be moderated and maybe it will be published again. So now when I click delete again, I should be able to, let's see, because I remember if it was on the first time that this got called or the second one. So we have an entity ID of ID2 that it's being loaded, and then we're calling get revision ID on that loaded revision. I think that's the failure, that we are not finding this revision, this node is gone, and that's why. So I'm going to jump on this method, on the load method, to see if it's actually loading it, and see what's been passed to get revision ID. With F3, I'm in the load method, see, and this gets the ID too. If we move on to the next line and we go to entities, entities is empty. The node is gone. So this is returning an empty array, and we are trying to get something out of an empty array. That's why the code is failing. We simply can fix this by splitting. Let's see if we can get to the next line. No, because the code is gonna just crash here, because this is gonna the array is gonna be chained onto the next method. It's going to try to get the latest revision, and it's gonna die. How can we fix this? I like to skip to the next video just by adding an if. If there is no entity, don't search for a latest revision and move on. That's it. If you're curious, these slides are linked on my Twitter account. There's a link there to the issue. If you're curious to see the fix, go ahead and open the issue. It's linked there. Any questions so far? It's a bit dark, so if you raise your hand, do like this, wave, because I cannot see very well. So this is the thinking process that I went through. We have an error, visible error, set a breakpoint, reproduce the error, minimum amount of steps as possible to be efficient, inspect the current variables, see what do you have available there. If it's needed, navigate through the backtrace if you don't really understand how the code got to that point. And if needed, because you don't get what's going on there, go to the higher level in the backtrace and set a breakpoint there and reproduce the error again and see if that makes sense. If it doesn't, keep repeating and going backward in the timeline until you understand what's going on, and then start fixing it. So the next one, it's trickier because it's not an evident error, but something is wrong. So that's why they call it traitor code, because it's code that should be doing something, but it's not. And this is the hard one, because Drupal is a massive thing. And where are you going to start debugging if you don't know where the error is, right? So these ones take, at least to me, they take me much more time to figure out what's wrong there, because experience will give you a lot of gut feeling on where to start setting breakpoints. But when you start in Drupal 8 and you don't have that experience, you don't know the APIs, it's harder. However, I always think that the harder the bug you're debugging, the more you will learn, because you will have to read more core, you will have to read more modules, you will have to understand more things. And by the end of it, you will feel that not only you have fixed the bug, but also you have learned a lot about core's internals. Course, or maybe the module that you're working with, even if it's custom code, you will understand a lot because you will see the code working. So here's a core bug that I found. This one is trickier to reproduce. The thing is that if you create a node and you edit the node and you click on add new revision and just, for example, change the title, and then you go to the revisions tab, then the title and the breadcrumb matches. They have the right title. But if you edit the node again and click again on create new revision and save, and you come back to this page, then the breadcrumb has the previous version. It doesn't have, the titles stop matching. It's like the title goes with this revision and the breadcrumb goes with this revision. There's no workbench moderation here. This is core. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, so is the breadcrumb the issue? The breadcrumb is the one showing it. So I need to figure out how Drupal 8 renders breadcrumbs. So the first thing that you need to do is finding candidates. In this case, I know it's the breadcrumb. There's something wrong with the breadcrumb. I guess it's caching. The breadcrumb is being cached, and that's why it's showing me an old version. Because if I clear caches, I can see the right title, but it shouldn't be. I shouldn't need to do this. We have the error here already in place. See article C, article B. B belongs to this revision. C belongs to the latest revision. I'm going to open Vim and see what sort of classes we have that manage breadcrumbs and see if I'm lucky. And I'm going to set up breakpoint there and run the code again and see if the code passes through that piece of logic. Huh? Maybe. Actually, the one who helped me here were Daniel and Berdir, because I was lost. Like, I had no idea how to. Actually, this video is like 12 minutes because I kept on digging until I just gave up. So see, I'm searching for file names that contain breadcrumb. And there are a few here. See, I can ignore interfaces because they are not going to be executed. Builders are more for managers are more for like managing classes and delegating. So normally there's not much logic in managers. But this one, path-based breadcrumb builder. So depending on the path, it shows a breadcrumb. I think this is a good candidate. So let's start there. If I'm completely lost, then I would just set a few ones on these classes and run. So I'm opening this file. This is the method within this class, the build method. This is the one that gets the title of the current entity you're viewing, and it's adding it to the breadcrumb. So these are the methods available, and these are the variables available for this class. So within the build, I have just set a breakpoint here. I'm gonna go back to Drupal and reload the page and see if I'm lucky. F5 is for listening connections. I reload. And nothing happens. Why? I don't know. I guess it's because the breadcrumb is cached. So I would have to clear caches. Cache. I don't know if it's caches or caches. I don't know. Caches for seeing these. I don't remember if I. Yeah. So see. Well, that's a typo. That's wrong. It's drush_cr. drush_cr clears all caches. Caches. Somebody corrected me. I think it's caches. And see, and now I'm gonna listen and run the page again. F5. And we got there. It's gonna work as well because caches. And I shouldn't say that anymore, and that's it. Are cleared, and we got the entity. This works, loads the title, and shows the right result. So see, the code is working. It's just not working where I want to. Like if I create a new revision, this should be the right things should be cleared, and this should run, but it's not. So this is what led me to the next step, which is, I'm gonna skip this because this is longer, which is digging. Like when I get this lost, it's like I'm gonna set a breakpoint in index.php and I start digging, like following the backtrace to see where are the breadcrumb cache tags being set and which tags are being used, and then how is the render API selecting the compiled twig template that is used to render the breadcrumb. And to be honest, as I said, Daniel and Barry helping me with this one because it was too much for me. So I'm coming back again to this page, and here is where we're gonna see how to get to the how Drupal Bootstrap works and how it decides which controller has to render the page contents, and then how it sets the render array that it's going to render the breadcrumb. So this is index.php. I've set a breakpoint there. I'm going to start listening. So we got there. This is, and the trick to get to the controller, it's follow handle, or pass. That's it. See, seems I'm talking Arabic when I say this. So see, handle there. We are going through the whole Bootstrap. This is pretty much leveraging what Symfony provides us. Again, pass. Like I'm just following the code. Handle. See how the backtrace, it starts growing. We still haven't got to the controller, the one that is in charge of rendering this list of revisions. Again, push, handle. I'm going fast through this, but it's interesting if you have a chance to just see and read what's happening, because it gives you a lot of insight of how Drupal prepares itself before starting to actually process your request. See, we got here, revision overview. This belongs to the node controller. This is the class that takes care of listing the revisions available for a particular node. It is not what we're looking for, because this renders just the table. We want the breadcrumb, which is just above. So I need to go to the next step, see what Drupal is doing after this, and see when it's setting the render array. I'm gonna summarize this because this is the video that is 12 minutes long, because it sets it much later. It throws dispatches a couple events, and one of the event subscribers is the one that sets the breadcrumb. It sets a breadcrumb array. The problem with this issue was that this line, like in the node access controller, we weren't setting the entity as one of the cache tags. So this is what was causing that when you would save a new revision, the cache tags weren't being updated, and therefore the cache version of the breadcrumb was being shown. This is affecting also other entities such as block content. So the issue is still open, but there is a fix, at least for nodes and blocks. And I think I stopped helping on this one, but it should get fixed pretty soon. So some tips when you have a traitor bug. Explore the code base and also see on the screen what area of the page is failing. See if that gives you any hints. And then go through the request. If you get lost, start digging, understanding what's going on, and repeat. Like, patience here is your best friend, because these kind of errors are, at least for me, the scenarios where I say to my manager, it may be half an hour, it may be one whole day, I don't know, because I don't know what's going on. And this is what I said before. The trick, and it's something positive, I think. The trickier the bug, the more you will learn, and it will help you in the future. That's for sure. You'll face another bug and you'll fix it in just 2 minutes, because you will understand what Drupal is doing. Tests. In Drupal, we have web tests and kernel tests and unit tests. Now, Daniel talked yesterday that now we have JavaScript tests as well. We're gonna see a few of them and how to set up the debugger so it can listen to them. Because this is why I added this GIF. Sometimes when I want to start to add testing coverage to a module, I go to the easiest first. I build a web test. it's like these issues that I showed you, and I submitted tests for them. I just write it and sometimes that you run the test and it doesn't work, and you are completely sure that it should work because you're telling it what to do, and it's not. The assertions are failing, and if you don't know how to debug what's going on there, it's tricky because you're just running the text and getting a red thing, but you don't really know what's going on there. So if you're able to debug there and run commands, that's really helpful. We're first gonna see a web test, and these ones are the trickiest to set up because there are two sides here. One side is the parent side, is the one that is running the test, is the one that is doing Drupal get, assert, and all the other setup. While the child side is the one that is receiving the requests and returning the responses, is the one that is getting a user logged in, is the one that is getting it's building a form and returning it to a user, or getting a post request for a form and submitting the results. So there are two sides there. Therefore, there are two things that you could debug. You can debug the test or testing code, or you can debug for example, a form submission if you want to test the child side. While kernel tests are new in Drupal 8, they are much faster. They install a much simpler version of Drupal core, so you need to set up your own context by using Drupal's APIs, and they only involve one side, so they are faster to debug. So see, this is a test for Page Manager module, and I want to see what's going on here. So I have set up a breakpoint. I have my test here, and with common Xdebug configuration, you'll get this working. And see, we got here to the test, and if we see the backtrace, it is not the index.php which run this. It's a simple test API which invoke this particular method. So we can do things here. See, this is something I do get raw content. It's giving me the current page. Sometimes I want to see the full page at that particular point of time to see what is the test viewing. And then I can see if I'm getting the same thing when I do the manual steps. Unfortunately, I think I got this on the yeah, see, this is broken right now. If you want to test, for example, how the submission of a form works throughout a test, that may not work. It couldn't work for me. There is an open issue that is linked there. It's because of an issue with cookies, and because Simple Test uses curl to submit requests to the child side, and you need to Drupal needs to manually inject a cookie there so that you can listen to. So if you're lucky and you made this work, let me know, because I couldn't make it work. Unit tests are easier because they are PHP unit. PHP unit just calls functions directly. There's no parent side and child side. This is a unit test. I think it's also, yeah, for a page manager. And same thing, set a breakpoint. I got an alias to run tests. It's this alias that I have works both for kernel tests and unit tests. Kernel tests sometimes need a database, so that's why I'm doing this. I think this output is broken. If anybody is curious about this alias I'm using, let me know. And this is how I run a unit test. I go into the core directory and I run this. I think I'm already listening. No, see the code run again. Now I'm gonna listen, run the test again, go back, and I'm there. And see, right now it was PHP unit that did all the bootstrap. And again, I have available all of PHP's APIs and Drupal's APIs, so I can perform my assertions manually there to see what's going on. Scripts. We can debug a Drush command, or we can debug a console command. This may be useful for you because there are bits of code that only run when Drupal is rebuilding stuff. For example, when routes are defined, that's a step that happens on cron runs, for example. So if you're defining a new route and you can figure out what's going on, it would be useful to just run drush cr and listen to that connection. There's a little trick with Drush that Jonathan helped me with. Like, you cannot call Drush directly, because Drush has like a wrapper that evaluates your operative system, and then it calls the Drush executable. So your debugger may be listening to the main request and not to the sub request that actually runs Drush. So I have another alias for that. I have something called like JDrush that calls the actual Drush script directly without evaluating my OS. So see, this is again, Page Manager is a module I've been working for quite a while. I wanted to see this event subscriber that it's adding new routes for each page. And so I set a breakpoint, go to the command line, run druscr, well, jdruscr, and I should hit that. So that's my alias. See, it's calling Drush Launcher. That's within Drush's core. And when I run druscr, I don't think I was listening here to connection. Something went weird. We're just going to try again. Yeah, there you are. I got there. See, right now it was Drush that invoked this. And routes are being defined. I can debug. I can see what's going on. Again. Console, it's easier because it doesn't use a wrapper. It just run. So here, I think the example what did I do? I think okay. So here I'm debugging the same thing because Drupal console can also rebuild routes. It has a command for that. So same breakpoint. I go to the command line. I figure out what's the command because I always use Drush. I just use console to generate scaffoldings of code so far. So the Drupal list command lists all the Drupal console commands, and there is one that is called router rebuild. That's the one I'm looking for. So I'm gonna call router rebuild, listen for connections, call router rebuild, and there you are. We are listening now there, and we can debug. And this was bootstrapped by Drupal console. Some useful links. These are my Xdebug settings for command line of Apache. Fish is an amazing tool to play around and discover APIs. Sometimes I plug this onto my Vim when I'm debugging to play with the current context. Gives you a lot of input about what sort of objects you have available and services. Xdebug traces are great when you want to get like an X-ray of the whole request. Watch out because it may be more than a gig, this file. Useful when you are dealing with traitor bugs because you can see where the code is. There were cases where, for example, I was so lost that I ran a whole request recording a trace. And I knew there was a failing scenario and a working scenario. So what I did was I ran the failing one, took the trace file. I ran the working one, took the trace one, and then I used Vim diff to see where these two were like going through different paths, and that led me to figuring out what was wrong there. And then Kint is it's the DPM in Drupal 7. You cannot do print anymore, as I said at the start of the session, in Drupal 8 because it may cause memory issues because of recursivity. That's it. Any questions? By the way, when we are done, before you leave, there are plenty of stickers here. I said it before, but I'm saying it again now. So if you want stickers, come here.
What happens if you are debugging and you find or fix a bug which is inside a Symfony component? Do you send the bug on the patch to Symfony or to Drupal?
It has never happened to me. I would send it first to Drupal, because it's also a Drupal issue and you will have to wait for a particular release or a Symfony upgrade. And yeah, then it would be going to the Symfony, that particular component in particular in Symfony, so in GitHub, and submit an issue there. Has it ever happened to you?
No, but
good question. Yeah, I think I would do that.
Yourself all of the time debugging inside Symfony components and I ask myself, what happens if the problem is here?
Yeah. Has it ever happened to anyone? It has never happened to me. No hands. So I get that. That's it. Yeah. Create an issue and then go to Symfony. And if nobody has ever seen this, means that Symfony components are pretty stable, I guess. Right. Next question. No. Yeah, Pedro.
Going on that, not in Symfony, but we found a couple of things in Kint, and we just submit the issue in both places. And Kint maintainers are incredibly responsive.
Nice.
So I think I will do both things.
Thank you. More questions? Can't see you well.
Okay, but I'm here. Wanted to know how do you manage to debug on with PHP unit test, because right now I'm using Selenium and PHP units, and sometimes I have the problem that I cannot stop the debugger, so I have to do some kind of blind debugging, just putting some, bar dumps and so on. How do you manage to stop, to make a breakpoint on the code?
Thing is that I don't use Selenium. I used Selenium until a couple years ago. I have no idea, to be honest. But I could sit with you if you want. Did you bring your laptop with you?
Yes.
Okay. I got another session now, so I have to run. But after that session, just come to the desk and with your laptop, and you can show me quickly. Maybe I can give you a hint.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
You mentioned fish, and I've never heard about it, so can you tell more about the tool?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you a video that is gonna amaze you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I felt. How do I get out here? F11 maybe? Yeah. Let's see if this works fast enough. No, it's not this fish. Actually, there are several names for this. What was the session? No, what's the actual... It was a blog post and there was a video in it. Anybody remembers? It was by Damian Kloip, I think. Kloip. Yeah, I think it's fish or PT. There are two technologies here, like fish and PTR, something like that. Let me show you myself. So it's already introduced in Drush. So if this is a Drupal 8 site, hope it's big enough. If you run Drush core CLI PSI shell, this is the one.
Okay.
So does this ring a bell?
Yeah. I just didn't know that it's called like that.
No, I don't want to start doing live debugging. Basically, here you can say get a service, and you can print it, and you can see what methods it has available, what it's inheriting from. You can maybe if I search by PSI shell, I can find that. At least I would like to see a screenshot. How much do we have time? How much time do we have left, Mateo? It's like
about 6 minutes.
Okay, great then. I think should be enough. This is the one. See, there are names, different names. So this REPL is what we just saw, and it uses PSISH or fish. I don't know. Let me see if I can show you a screenshot. Maybe here. I'm gonna search by REPL instead. There you are. Let's see if we can see. This is sort of its output that you get with it. Let me see if I can find a better example. Yeah, this one. See, for example, we are dumping here an object. This object is an action object, and this doesn't die as when you do a print. I think it offers you more output, and it's easier to read than with Kint. I prefer this to Kint myself. And since it's a command line interface, you can play with it. You can set values to variables and run the code. Sometimes I use this to write a particular script, and then I copy the code and move it to the right file. Helps me a lot to figure out things. Sometimes I need context. Like I need already a set of variables with certain data to see what to do what I want to do, and that's when I set a breakpoint. And in the blog documentation, I think it's linked there at the last slide. There is a couple lines that show you how to bootstrap fish manually. So what I do is set a breakpoint, get there, run these 2 lines, and then I have fish on my debugger, which is amazing. So I can start just playing around with the data with that context. And that was heaven for me when I got that working. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Any more? All right. Thank you very much.